The only reason I'm answering this question, the question is, should I use Turbo Repo with Next.js and Express, or just stick with Next.js, like two different folders, not use a monorepo? Long story short, Turbo Repo specifically, you may or may not use. Turbo Repo is useful when you have a very big project in a very big organization. Turbo Repo specifically is for optimizing build times. So that if you have multiple modules that depend on each other and you want to build just your Next.js app, you only pick the right things. It also gives you build caches so that whenever you're building in your CI/CD pipeline, you can use their cloud offering and speed up the build process. So if you're in a very big organization where people are shipping code, let's say Razorpay, left, right, and center, you can optimize build times if you use Turbo Repo. Now that's different from monorepos. Monorepo, like simple yarn workspaces, help you share code. So at the very least, try to use some sort of a monorepo so that if you have shareable code, you don't have to repeat it, like write it in two different places. Other than that, there is no real need for Turbo Repo. In fact, it complicates things from time to time. So that would be my answer to using Turbo Repo versus monorepo versus nothing at all. All right, authentication, please with access token, refresh token. Okay, let me take a screenshot of that. I have completed the Brainly app, front and back end, connecting it. I was just rendering it before the class, so that should come by the end of today. Access token, refresh token, just one small thing changes. So whenever we build the next project, just remind me, and over there we'll do that. Prisma Postgres when? I was thinking this, okay, should we do Prisma? So it's basically real-time communication, Prisma Postgres, Next.js. That's the three big action items, right? Then we can take a breather also. Then it's all our auxiliary concepts that may or may not be used not in a job, like generally also. If there are like 100 jobs, 90 of them will be stuck here in the Next.js, Prisma Postgres, maybe Drizzle, and TypeScript. So we're slowly inching towards, the most actionable things, and then come the next set of things. So basically, like 3 weeks, we need to do Websockets. That's today, or probably this week. If you're able to do Websockets today, I can do Prisma Postgres tomorrow also. Even though that's probably a week worth of work. So yeah, basically Websockets, Prisma Postgres, Next.js. That's the next weeks. Now the order might change, but that's the most actionable items for us next. Cool. So we will not learn Socket.io. I mean, if you know WebSockets, it's very easy for you to learn Socket.io. I'll also talk about the drawbacks or downsides of using Socket.io today. But it's just easy. All right, we will wait for a few more people to join. Deployment video will. I'm starting recording DevOps offline now, like recorded videos from this week. There is one very actionable video in Super 30. Like in Super 30, I just took people through. This is how you deploy your application. I can post that one if you want, but it will be very overwhelming. So let me just tell beginners already. Okay, there will be an extra video from Super 30 that I'll post, which is very actionable. By actionable, I mean, bhai, कि ये लो ऐसा होता है industry में. This is the easiest way for you to deploy your application via GitHub to CI/CD to Docker Hub to your VMs or Kubernetes. तो उसमें जितना grasp कर पाए कर लेना. But slowly, actionably, videos will come from next week. All right. Waiting for another minute maybe, then we'll start. OAuth. We don't. So let's do OAuth specifically also. Like we don't generally do it. We use NextAuth after we learn Next.js to do OAuth. But we can do a separate video on OAuth as well. That's also probably a good point. Alrighty. Any other questions? React Native Notion doc, if you have. I don't think I have a React Native Notion doc. I have a Golang Notion doc. I have a Python Fast API Notion doc. I can share those. I'm recording videos for them, for you guys only, for cohort 3. So it might come right on your face one day, or, I can share it incrementally also. We'll see. Cool. Co-host has been made, and we're going to kick things off with learning about WebSockets. Let me share the slides with everyone. Not too difficult of a topic. Actually depends on how comfortable you are with HTTP now. If you're comfortable with HTTP, if you now understand how can you build an Express app, if you've built a few, there's one thing to understand it conceptually, there's another thing to code it yourself. So many people I've found who say they've built a project, then I ask them to make it, they cannot. To make sure you're in the second category, guys, it's not too difficult. Looking at someone, binging at someone is not going to, make you reach anywhere. So try to code it yourself. Slides have been posted in the chat. Let me take you through the context for today. Today we're going to understand about the WebSocket protocol, to begin with. WebSockets is a protocol similar to HTTP. HTTP is a protocol. Then we'll try to implement WebSockets in Node.js. There are various ways to do it. We'll talk about Socket.io. Someone else was saying today in chat, let's do Socket.io, Harkirat. So I'll talk about what Socket.io is, why you should or should not use it, even though some very big companies use it. Like CoinDCX uses Socket.io, surprisingly. Someone else was telling me recently, I don't know, Canva or something also uses Socket.io. It makes your life a little easy. It hides a lot of complexity of WebSockets and gives you some extra things on top like rooms. So we can talk through it. I can also quickly code up an example and show you how it's different from WebSockets. WebSockets in Node.js. Here we like the code. I know what will happen in this slide. Then we'll understand the client-side code for it. जैसे अगर आपने HTTP server बनाया है Express में, you made an HTTP server in Express, तो आप उसको front end से call करते हो using fetch or Axios. So similarly, when you make a WebSocket server, how do you connect the front end to it? How does the front end talk to the back end if you have a WebSocket server? And then scaling WebSocket server is a very nice discussion if we get to it. Creating one WebSocket server is easy, but it's very difficult to scale it compared to scaling HTTP servers. तो मैं थोड़ा बात करूँगा about how you scale HTTP servers, which is ideally should be part of DevOps, but we can talk through it right now, and how scaling WebSockets is 10 times more challenging compared to scaling HTTP servers. With that, let's get into today's session on WebSockets. You might have heard of them. I'm sure some of you have heard of them. Let's start with a poll only. How many of you already know WebSockets, have built an HTTP, a Node.js server in WebSockets, have built a basic application? If you've built our chess application on YouTube, if you've built, Metaverse application, you know what WebSockets are. Do you know WebSockets? Oh, surprising. 25% know it. I was expecting 40, 60 or something. That's totally fine. For the same reason we go slow. Cohort 3 is very slow, and we'll understand this slowly as well. So 25% already know, 75% don't. तो जब पोल होगा तब भी I'll keep this in mind and try to understand. जिनको नहीं आता था उनमें से कितनों को अब समझ आया. All right, let's get right into it, guys. WebSockets provide a way to establish a persistent full duplex communication channel over a single TCP connection between client and server. Now 10 different jargons in here. Persistent full duplex channel over a single TCP connection. बहुत सारी टर्म्स मैंने आपके ऊपर फेंक दी हैं. लेट्स ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड ऑल ऑफ दीज टर्म्स वन बाय वन. ठीक है, बिफोर वी गेट इनटू एनीथिंग एल्स, लेट्स अंडरस्टैंड दीज 4 टर्म्स. दे आर गुड टू नो. दीज जार्गन्स हेल्प लेटर ऑन एज वेल. जब कोई रैंडमली विल समवन विल से TCP in front of you, you should know what TCP is, at least enough to be able to talk about it. Persistent. Persistence means कि right now the HTTP servers that we have built, now hopefully you guys know HTTP servers. अगर वो भी नहीं आता है then you need to revise a few classes. An HTTP server, let me zoom in a little. An HTTP server that we have made until now has routes, if you remember, app.get. This is the code that we have been writing. It has these routes, and whenever a client, what is a client? A browser. Postman is also a client. A mobile app is also a client. जब आप to do application बना रहे हो, if you are building a to do application, your website might interact with it. You might also have a mobile app for it. So clients are a very broad term. It's not just कि website पे you do Axios.get. You do the same in a mobile app also. If it is a React native application, then you'll do Axios.get only. But if it is, Android application written in Java, then you do something else. You send a HTTP request to this server. But this request can be sent from various clients. And one popular client that we have been using until now is Postman. Postman is also an HTTP client only. यहाँ से भी you can send a request, get back a response. From here also, a browser, you can send a request, get back a response. From a mobile app, you can send a request, get back a response. It's not like you have multiple servers or multiple HTTP servers or different protocols for mobile application or browser. Usually 99% of the times same ही होती हैं. तो the way we send a request is कि भाई request भेजी, response आ गया. I sent a request to the backend. The backend responded back with some response. This is not a persistent connection. Persistence का मतलब होता है कि once the connection has been made, it stays there. You can keep sending multiple requests on the same network, on the same, connection. You can you may or may not get back multiple responses from the server, but browser बार बार भेज सकता है. The browser can again and again send the request. You might say कि तो मैं यहां भी कर सकता हूं. I can send axios.get 2 times, 3 times. So does that make HTTP also persistent? And the answer is no. HTTP is not persistent because there's a very common term called three-way handshake. Three-way handshake का मतलब होता है कि whenever you create these connections, right, from my browser to a server in the US, there is a three-way connection. Three-way handshake. The browser tells the वो कि मैं तेरे से connect करना चाह रहा हूँ. Browser tells the server, I want to connect. Server responds back, ठीक है भाई, I got who you are. The browser says, ठीक है, thank you. I know that you got who I am. Browser tells कि I want to connect with you. Server says, ठीक है, you can connect with me. Browser's like, okay, I'm connecting with you. There is a three-way handshake that happens. That is very slow. That is one of the slowest things that happens when an HTTP request is created. When you send an axios.get, under the hood, a three-way handshake happens. That three-way handshake closes when this request stops. जब ये axios.get का आपको response मिल गया, when you get back a response for this axios.get request, you close that connection. If you want to send another axios.get, you will again do a three-way handshake. If you want to send another axios.get, you will restart the connection with the backend. So it is not a persistent connection. Every time you are sending axios.get, every time you are connecting to the backend server, you are re-establishing a connection with the backend server. And as soon as you get the response, you close the connection. Why? Because the protocol is written this way. HTTP protocol लिखी ही इसलिए थी. Request response model. Request गई, response वापस आ गया. It was never meant to create persistent connections. To create persistent connections, we use other protocols, Websockets being one of them. Websockets and even WebRTC, अगर आपने नाम सुना हो इसका, creates a persistent connection between two parties. So let's forget Websockets for now. Let's understand let's forget HTTP for now. Let's understand WebSockets. कि यार अगर आपके ब्राउजर को एक बैकएंड से कनेक्ट करना है, if your browser wants to connect to a backend, it can create a WebSocket connection between the browser and the backend. What this will do is, इसमें भी there will be a three-way handshake. First I will send कि I want to connect with you. The backend will be like, sure, you can connect with me. Then I'll be like, okay, I am connecting with you. This is three-way handshake will happen. But now I am persistently connected to the backend. Persistent का मतलब क्या होता है कि वो connection वहीं रहेगा. Unless you explicitly close it, unless आप उसको close कर दो browser से या the backend crashes, the connection will remain persistent if you have a WebSocket server. Now on this WebSocket server you can send data incrementally कि जितना data भेजना है भेज दो. ws.send /get, let's say, okay, what is the current temperature, and then the backend would return me some response, so on and so forth. मैं ये बार बार भेज सकता हूँ. I can send this more than once. That is not true for HTTP servers. That is what persistent means over here. हम जब कोड करेंगे हम इसको देखेंगे भी कि हम बार बार उसी ऑब्जेक्ट पे रिक्वेस्ट भेज पा रहे हैं. वी आर एबल टू सेंड द रिक्वेस्ट ऑन द सेम ऑब्जेक्ट. Full duplex communication means कि the client can send multiple messages now and the server can also respond back with multiple messages. Duplex means both ways. Browser can send multiple messages, hi, then hello, then 1, 2, 3, whatever message it wants, one by one. The server can respond back with hi, hello, or whatever the server wants to respond back with. That is what full duplex communication means. Over a single TCP connection. TCP, Transmission Control Protocol, for the people who have done computer networks in school, आपको पता होगा, or in college. For people who haven't heard of it, I can throw a few terms at you. We don't have to go this deep, but there is something called an OSI model on the internet. There are various layers in this OSI protocol. नहीं समझ आ रहा है तो totally ignore. It is fine. You don't need it for a really long time unless in an interview someone is grilling you. So in the OSI model, TCP, there are various layers of networks and TCP is the lowest layer and HTTP is the highest layer. अब ये क्या होता है? Don't worry about it. TCP and UDP are two popular protocols. This is what one thing you need to know. कि यार एक साइड पे हैं protocols like HTTP, like Websockets, like WebRTC. These are one type of protocol. These are called, now I'm confused, layer 1 or layer 7. Most probably, these are called layer 1 protocols. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. These are called layer 1 protocols. Layer 1 मतलब कि जब आप कोड लिख रहे होते हो ना एज अ डेवलपर, तो आपको इसके साथ डील करना है. When you are writing code as a developer, you do a app.listen. You create an HTTP server. You don't have to create a TCP server. वो खुद बन जाता है. So on the other side are protocols like, which are called layer 7 or 5 protocols based on which model you are using. The OSI model or a different model. These are TCP, UDP अगर आपने इनका नाम सुना हो. They have a very basic difference between them. So we can read about when we reach, WebRTC or these concepts, then we'll understand the difference between TCP and UDP. But today we are going to create a WebSocket server. And WebSocket servers under the hood use the TCP protocol. HTTP servers also under the hood use the TCP protocol. WebRTC under the hood can use TCP. It can use the other one also, UDP. Usually it uses UDP. But that is what this thing over here means. Okay. WebSocket servers, if you are creating one, you are creating a TCP connection under the hood between the client and the server. These are the properties of a WebSocket server. Properties being, WebSockets provide a way to establish a persistent connection with full duplex communication channel over a single TCP connection between the client, typically a browser, or could be a mobile application, and the server. Now, what is a good use case of this? हम ये पढ़ तो रहे हैं, but isn't HTTP enough? Why do you need WebSockets? And the answer is for real-time communication. For real-time communication, very common term, RTC, real-time communication. Go to the recent podcast on 100x devs. You will see the person over there is talking about RTC, about real-time communication. कि यार my job was to implement real-time communication. मुझे तो WebSockets आता था, मैंने 2 दिन में कर दिया. I was able to do it in 2 days because I knew WebSockets. The founder did not. Founder was using something else. So very common jargon, real-time communication. What this means is for applications like these, for applications like this, let's say, notice numbers are changing very quickly over here. Let me choose a more active coin. Notice how these numbers are changing. What these numbers mean, you don't have to worry about. But notice how this whole thing is a bunch of complex numbers that are coming, going very quickly, changing very quickly. This is called real-time communication. कि आपको real time में पता लग रहा है कि सोलाना का प्राइस क्या है. Let's say that's one of the things that you get over here. कि in real time, you can see कि अच्छा Solana's price is, let's say, 265, 264. What is another example of real-time communication? A metaverse game, Gather Town, where people are moving around. If a lot of people are moving around in a game and you can see everyone, you need a lot of real-time data. You need कि बहुत सारा data जल्दी backend से आए. So notice how the prices are changing. Some numbers are changing over here very quickly. This whole thing, whatever this is changing very quickly. अब इसको कैसे implement करोगे HTTP में? Will you every 50 milliseconds ask the HTTP server कि यार what is this big thing looking like? Let's call this very big thing over here an order book. Let's call this an order book. तो आप क्या करोगे? Every 5 milliseconds will you ask कि यार what does the order book look like? You can do that. तब भी तो आपकी every 5 milliseconds you will keep on getting a response and you will keep updating the UI कि UI पे कुछ change हो गया. तो you can do that. You can keep sending HTTP requests. सर्वर आपको बताता रहेगा कि यार अभी ये बुक ऐसी दिखती है, अभी ये बुक ऐसे चेंज हो गई, ऐसे चेंज हो गई, यहाँ पे the number became this, यहाँ पे the number became this. You can send multiple HTTP requests every second. But is that happening here? Let's try to look at it. Right click, inspect, go to the network tab and notice HTTP request तो कोई जा ही नहीं रही. There are a few HTTP requests, but it's not like every 5 milliseconds this data is coming from an HTTP request. वहां से तो नहीं आ रहा. This real time data is not coming from thousands of HTTP requests that are going out very quickly. So where is it coming from? It's coming from a WebSocket server. Why is WebSocket server better for real time communication? Why not HTTP? Because अगर इतना डेटा आने वाला है, इतनी क्विकली डेटा आने वाला है, if the data is coming so quickly, if you're going to send, let's say 30 requests a second, so you are doing three-way handshake 30 times. 30 times you are talking to the backend, creating a connection, getting the response, closing the connection, then again creating the connection. That will make it very slow. That is why it is a good idea for you to have a persistent connection between the client and the server. A persistent connection between the client and the server. This is a WebSocket server. And now the server can keep sending you events every at, let's say, 30 FPS. 30 FPS stands for 30 frames per second or 30 messages per second. Okay, the order book now looks like this. And now the order book looks like this. And now it looks like this. वो भेजता रहेगा आपको. It's a much easier way to get back data from the backend. Real time data. This, you shouldn't use WebSockets for most things. Most CRUD applications, to-do application, create an HTTP server. But when you have use cases like these, कि बहुत सारा डेटा बहुत जल्दी आने वाला है और आता ही रहेगा, a lot of data is coming, will keep on coming at very high frequency, then you use WebSockets. So the way a WebSocket works for this use case is कि the browser connects to the server, the browser sends a request to the server कि hey, can you give me the price of Solana persistently, कि भेजता रहे, जैसे जैसे Solana changes, keep giving it to me. And the server will keep on sending messages. Okay, the Solana price right now is this. And now it's this. And now is this. And UI में, you can keep changing it. If you ever want to create a portfolio tracker, so you would do something similar. Okay? Whenever the price of Solana changes, the server will respond back. आप बंदे को उसका portfolio दिखा दोगे कि यार your portfolio is now $170. Now it's $169 because Solana went down. So on and so forth. So that is what WebSockets are used for. They are used for real-time communication. Chat application, the simplest example that you can build in 5 minutes is a chat application. Why does chat application require WebSockets? Why does? That is a great question. Okay, if there is one person's browser over here, let's say browser 1, this person is trying to talk to another person somewhere else in the universe, browser 2. Why do these browsers need to use the WebSocket protocol? ये तो HTTP use कर सकते हैं. I can have an if let's say the frequency of messages is not very high. अगर मैं बहुत सारे messages नहीं भेज रहा हूं, I am sending one message every 10 seconds. Then why can't this be an HTTP server? जब मुझे message भेजना होगा, whenever let's say this is the interface, यहाँ पे there is a text box, यहाँ पे there is a text box. Whenever I want to send a message, let's say hi there, and I press enter, I can do a axios.post/message. कि यार send an HTTP request here. It will store it in the database. But is that enough? How will this person get the message? इसके पास message पहुंचेगा कैसे? मैंने message भेज तो दिया. That's a user driven event. User pressed on a button or user pressed the enter key. तो message reached here via HTTP. How does the message reach here? There is no persistent connection here already. ये यहां से message भेज नहीं सकता. There is no two-way communication. What does WebSockets give you? They give you full duplex communication. सर्वर जब चाहे सर्वर से इवेंट्स भेज सकता है, क्लाइंट जब चाहे क्लाइंट से इवेंट भेज सकता है. It is two-way communication. HTTP is not two-way communication. HTTP is browser will initiate a request, then server will respond. खुद से सर्वर साइड इवेंट नहीं भेज सकता. सर्वर can't push you an event in HTTP, but in WebSockets it can. So if this was a WebSocket server, then whenever a user joins a chat room, let's say this is a chat room, not even chat between two people, there are 3 people, all in the same chat room. So whenever the person joins a chat room, they can create a persistent connection to the WebSocket server. And now all I have to do is यार WebSocket server पे send hi there. I will send this message over here. Hi there will reach over here. and the WebSocket server can push कि यार hi there आया है, please put hi there over here. Harkirat has sent hi there. So their chat history में hi there bubble will appear, and it will appear here as well. Similarly, if this person says hello and presses enter, then this message can go from here to here. And since there is two-way communication, it can go from here to here also. It can go from here to here also. Can you do it using HTTP? You can do it using HTTP. There are terms like polling or long polling. You can use this. I'm happy to talk about what this is. This is probably a common question that will come in an interview. Okay, why can't you use long polling here? Why do you need WebSockets? तो long polling, as the name is suggesting, थोड़ा थोड़ा इसके यार अगर आप नहीं यूज कर सकते WebSockets, let's say you are restricted to use HTTP servers, then how will you create this chat application? We get के WebSockets make it easy to create chat applications. But if you are restricted to use an HTTP server, so how will you do it? Sending is the same. I can send a message with a body that says whatever, hi there. That is fine. That message will reach over here. This guy can never push data. So that is why polling, poll करने का मतलब क्या होता है? Polling means कि पूछते रहना बार बार कि यार हुआ ये काम, did a message come? So what you can do is, on all the clients can keep polling the HTTP server कि कोई नया मैसेज आया क्या? The server can respond back कि अभी तो नहीं आया. तो you can still do it using HTTP. It is much more harsher, much more resource intensive. It's actually not resource intensive, but it's just, bad practice. मैं पूछ रहा हूँ उससे, वो मुझे बता रहा है कि हाँ नहीं आया, अच्छा फिर से पूछ रहा हूँ. Since I can't create a persistent connection, HTTP doesn't allow to create a persistent connection, you keep polling every 2 seconds कि कोई नया मैसेज आया. And if hi there is pushed, then after 2 seconds I will ask कि is there a new message? And then the server can respond back with, hey, there is a new message, hi there, please put it over here. So can you create duplex applications using HTTP only? You can. How? By polling. By every client is polling the backend कि यार कुछ नया आया, is there something new? And if the server has something, it will respond back. If the server has nothing, it will respond back कुछ नहीं आया अभी. Cool. That's what polling is. And that is why WebSockets should be used for a chat application. Live feeds, financial tickers, news feeds, जो भी आपने देखा जैसे, this is just nothing but a financial ticker. This is a little complicated, but the number that you see over here is just the current price of Solana. Whenever it changes, this value will change over here automatically. This also should come via WebSocket server. It should be a server side event. An event pushed by the server. Client shouldn't keep asking कि अब क्या प्राइस है. Server खुद बता देगा. Interactive services. Excelit जो हम बना रहे हैं. One of the projects that we have to build is Excelit. Collaborative editing tools. इसमें भी यही होगा. If I open Excelit in 2 tabs, if I make something over here, it reaches over here as well. How? They may or may not use WebSocket servers, but they might just use local, क्योंकि मेरे browser में ही हो रहा है ना. So there might be an easier way to do it without WebSocket server. If all you have to do is communicate between browsers of your own machine. But अगर मैंने खोल रखा है and you have also opened it, then here also I will push this event to the server. Server will push this event to you. You will start to see this rectangle on your side as well. So here also you need WebSocket servers. Why not use REST? The answer is वही बार बार पूछोगे. You will keep asking the server again and again के what is the current price of Sol? What is the current price of Sol? What is the current price of Sol? You will do 3-way handshake multiple times every second. That's very resource intensive. You shouldn't do that. That is why you should not use HTTP. You should use WebSockets. अगर पता है कि server has to push events at a very high throughput, very high frequency, use WebSockets. अगर पता है कि you need server side events, server needs to push events from time to time, use WebSockets. Network handshake happens for every request. जब आप ये कर रहे हो, no way to push events from the server. Server सीधा event नहीं push कर सकता. Browser can poll it, but that's also unoptimal. All right. Here is a fun example. Let me try logging in to LeetCode. I'm sure all of you have seen lead code. What is that? Oh, lead code premium. Okay. No one will judge me on my number of problems. I don't think I have too many. Let's open a random problem here. Let's try to run the code. Let's try to submit the code. Try करते हैं. Inspect element, network. Let me click on submit. Notice submit request एकदम से चली गई. The submit request resolved immediately. ऐसा नहीं था मैंने submit किया. It executed my code and then responded. No. I submitted. It said आ गया मेरे पास problem. I will evaluate it. When you submit a problem on lead code, you don't immediately get back a response. Look at it. What does it return? It returns a submission ID. It did not return me कि हाँ test case 1 has passed or test case 2 has failed. It returned me a submission ID. To get the actual submission, I am polling the lead code backend server. मैं बार बार भेज रहा हूँ कि status क्या है? ये problem मेरी हो गई submit, हो गई solve. Finally, 5th request में it tells me कि हाँ हो गई. These were your test cases. This is the whatever memory that you took. This was the time that it took for the problem to run. This was the output from the standard output. This is the state success. मतलब आपका code सही है. तो what is happening is there isn't a single request that is going out. First request is going out. It is accepting your code. It is not running your code. It is accepting your code and giving you a submission ID. कि ये रही आपकी submission ID. Then it is running your code slowly and you are checking, you are hitting the check endpoint कि यार ये हो गया क्या तुम्हारे पास? Is this solved now? Is this solved now? Do you have the result of this? And eventually यहाँ जाके you get the result. So they use polling, even though it is lead code, such a big app. Why don't they use Websockets? Because it just works. You don't have to use Websockets, even though it may or may not be a good idea to use it here. यहाँ पे use क्यों करना है? क्योंकि you need a server side event. हो क्या रहा है? Lead code में ये हो रहा है. If this is lead code and this is your browser, you are sending the first request कि ये लो मेरा code. It is telling you code I have accepted. I have not run. I have accepted. This is your submission ID 123. Now if there was a WebSocket server, जब भी problem solve हो जाती, whenever the problem would have been solved, the server would push to you कि यार your status is accepted or rejected. तो WebSocket makes sense here. But again, practically it doesn't make sense. Theoretically it makes sense. क्या WebSocket ही होना चाहिए, right? It is a server pushed event. We have just discussed, if you have server pushed events, you should use WebSockets. But they use polling. Every 1 second I keep checking, यार submission हुआ क्या 1, 2, 3? What is the status of 1, 2, 3? It tells me I'm checking, then I send another request, then I send another request. Finally, after 5 seconds, 10 seconds, whenever the problem is executed, I get back the response, yeah, everything is fine. Same architecture we are using in Algo Arena. This we have coded. If you try to solve the same problem here, right click inspect network and click on submit. I first send a request to submission and then I start polling the submission. I start polling it. And then first poll में कुछ नहीं आया. Second poll में response आ गया कि यार submission ID ये थी, status is accepted. So you might think कि WebSockets make sense theoretically some places, but that doesn't mean you should use them everywhere. इस use case में if it works, it works. Scaling WebSockets is hard, as I said. तो lead code ने कहा होगा हमें वो challenge पकड़ना ही नहीं है. We don't want to use scale WebSockets. So we ignore the problem completely. We are going to focus on long polling or simple polling over here. हर second हमसे पूछ रहा हो हम status बता देंगे. Lead code uses polling. Backpack doesn't use polling. Like this exchange doesn't use polling. This uses WebSockets. We can quickly see also if we want to. We can right click on inspect, go to the network tab, and यहाँ पे you can inspect WebSocket requests also. If I refresh this and search for WebSocket, I see that I connected to ws.backpack.exchange, a WebSocket server, not an HTTP server, a WebSocket server. Notice this is different. It has 2 arrows like this. कि आप भी मैसेज भेज सकते हो, सर्वर भी मैसेज लौटा सकता है. There is a messages section over here. There isn't a response There is messages, infinite messages. And if you notice, infinitely so many messages are coming in. They are flowing in. All of these are messages that are coming, and even new messages are coming. What does this message have? Let's try to look at one of these messages. This message says, क्या depth of Sol USDC. Depth क्या होता है? ये मतलब how these numbers that you see over here, they are called the depth of this order book. तो ये आपको अपडेट्स बता रहा है कि 265 पे क्वांटिटी अब ये हो गई, 265.61 पे quantity now looks like this. So that is how the front end is getting the current quantities over here, whatever they mean, and updating the front end. It's coming through a WebSocket server. Lead code में coming through HTTP via polling. Cool. Do we understand the use case of WebSockets? Let's do a quick poll. Do we understand what are WebSockets? Why do you need them? Sometimes theoretically they make sense, practically they don't make sense. %92 is decent. That means that's decent. 25% already new. Now 92% new. That is fine. थोड़ा कोड करेंगे बेहतर समझ आएगा. There are various, so HTTP is a protocol. There are not thousands, but like hundreds of libraries on Node.js. Express is just one of them. And similarly, WebSocket is a protocol. There are various libraries on Node.js, on Golang that let you create the WebSocket server. Here are some popular ones. There is WebSocket, there is WS, and then there is Socket.io. The most common one you would use whenever you are initially trying to create a chat app. The beginner chat app will use this, not protocol. This is more of a library built on top of WebSockets and HTTP, a bunch of things. Socket.io, bi-directional and low latency communication for every platform. So they're also a protocol, not really, they're sort of a protocol only. They are something. They make your life very easy when you want to do real-time communication. But we don't want to make our lives easy. We will stick to raw WebSockets. We will not use Socket.io. Why? Because as I said, it's a protocol in itself. वो खुद की एक protocol है. It is built on top of WebSockets, but it's a protocol of it itself. The problem with Socket.io is कि even though Socket.io is great, it works. It gives you constructs like rooms to make the API much cleaner. ये rooms क्या होते हैं? We'll come to very soon. It's harder to support multiple platforms in it. तो Socket.io एक खुद की protocol है. WebSocket बहुत popular protocol है. HTTP very popular protocol. There is a Node.js library called Axios जो इसको support करती है. In fact, natively Fetch इसको support करता है. Even on let's say this is the browser, then this is your Node.js backend. इसमें भी Axios and Fetch आप call कर सकते हो. There are very commonly available libraries that can help you talk to this HTTP server. Native application अगर आप बना रहे हो in Java, let's say, और Java backend आप बना रहे हो, or an Android application in Java, तो Java has this whatever HTTP builder, a very commonly available library that supports talking to an HTTP server. The same is true for WebSockets. अगर आपने एक WebSocket server बना लिया, तो you will find various libraries, जैसे browsers and Node.js supports WebSocket natively. Natively का मतलब क्या है कि कोई library की भी जरूरत नहीं है. It just works. WebSocket is a variable that is available to you. If I open my console, I can type WebSocket here. Implemented है. Fetch implemented है. Socket.io implemented नहीं है. It is a custom protocol. It's not built by IETF, the organization that is writing these protocols. It is built by some random person who said कि मैं थोड़ा नई protocol बनाऊंगा. So the problem with, and same is true here. Node.js application में भी you can use this WebSocket construct. Java में there'll be whatever a WS builder, Golang, Rust, whatever your backend has, you can talk to this backend from it. That is not true if you use Socket.io. अगर आपको Socket.io को अब Android में use करना है Java में, तो hopefully some random person has written a library that supports it. People have written it. Socket.io has decent support now. Java में है, C++ में है. So you can actually use Socket.io with a C++ library. Someone has written a client, but there are unofficial clients that people have built. That is why if your application is going to be extremely cross-platform मतलब C++ will also want to talk to each other. A Golang backend would also want to talk to it. A Rust application would also want to talk to it. A browser will also want to talk to it. तो Socket.io use मत करो. Otherwise, you can use it. It makes your code much cleaner. It's much easier to write code in Socket.io. We will not use it. We will use the raw WebSocket library. So let's do that next. Express का code हमें लिखना आता है. We know how to write Express code. We will learn how to write WebSocket code. Very simple. 1,000 times simple than writing Express code. Express has middlewares, cores, headers, body, response status. इसमें कुछ नहीं है. 5 lines of code. You create your WebSocket server. You can talk to it. Let's look at it. Code करें थोड़ा. Let's initialize an empty Node.js project. In TypeScript. Now, from now on, we'll only be using TypeScript on all of our code. So, cd projects cohort 3, mkdir WebSocket, or week, I don't know what we're at, 17 or 16, one of these two WebSockets. cd week 17 WebSockets. It's an empty folder. Let me open it in Visual Studio Code. Step 1, it's already in the slides. npm init-y to initialize a package.json. Step 2, npx tsc-init to initialize a empty tsconfig.json. Before that, you have to do npm install TypeScript. ये नहीं करोगे तो you will see the error that I saw. So, npm init-y followed by npm install TypeScript followed by npx tsc-init, and this initializes an empty tsconfig.json here, not an empty, a basic tsconfig.json. इसके बाद हम क्या करते थे, डू यू रिमेंबर? इन स्टेप्स को तो घोट के पी जाओ भाई. वेरी सिंपल स्टेप्स दैट वी आर गोइंग टू फॉलो ऑन एवरी TypeScript प्रोजेक्ट. वी चेंज द रूट डायरेक्टरी टू बी ./src. We change the root directory to ./source. What does it do, Harkirat? Go back to the TypeScript class. We've discussed this. Out directory. We will change this to ./dist. All the instructions are in the slides as well. Then we create a new folder called src. I repeat, I changed the tsconfig a little bit. I added a root dir and an out dir. Root dir being ./source, out dir being ./dist. Create a source folder, create an index.ts inside, and here I'll be writing my code. Let me log console.log hi. How do you run this TypeScript project? Do you remember? Let me take it to steps again, जो लोग follow कर रहे हैं. Create a package.json, npm install TypeScript, create a tsconfig.json. Yeah, now it's downhill. Now I will keep coughing. Change the root dir and the out dir. बस इतना ही करना है. And create a source/index.ts file. Now to start it, one of many ways is, or one of the clean ways is, go to package.json, add a dev script, and यहाँ पे write tsc-b to compile the code, and node dist/index.js to run the code. This will convert your TypeScript code to a JavaScript file, and means कि जब ये हो जाए उसके बाद run this, which is node.dist/index.js. After you've written this, run npm run dev, and you will see hi has been printed over here, dist has been created, index.js is present in here. Hopefully we understand this. If all of this is jarring, what do? You go to Replit, you create a new TypeScript playground. I repeat, you go to repl.it, you sign up over here. You click on create new and you select TypeScript from here. I have gone over my limit, but for you, just select a new TypeScript playground and then just write the code that I'm writing over there. Cool. Now comes the question of what library will we use? As I said, Express is just one library for HTTP. Hono is another one. Cow is another one. K-A-O or K-O-A, one of these two. There are many HTTP libraries. There are many WebSocket libraries. The one that I use usually is WS. npm install WS and at type/WS. Harkiyat, what does this do? Last week we have discussed. Install the dependencies. npm install. Express nahi karna hai ab. We don't need express anymore. WS at types/WS. The WS library, name itself is giving it away. WebSocket library at types/WS. That's the types of the WebSocket library. All right. Now, I have given 3 different approaches to start a WebSocket server. You can start an HTTP and a WebSocket server together also if you want. For example, in this second code over here, we are using Express also. We are using the WebSocket library also that I talked about. And यहाँ पे, I can write HTTP routes also, Express routes also. I can write a WebSocket server also. But we are going to go with a pure WebSocket server, not using the native HTTP library, not using Express or any other framework. This example that you see over here has been bluntly copied from WS npm. So if you go to their npm page, you'll find a bunch of basic examples. First example being this. This is something else. This is using the WebSocket library to connect to a WebSocket server. This is client side code. अगर एक Node.js process को दूसरे Node.js server से बात करनी है, if one Node.js server needs to talk to another WebSocket server, then you use this code. That is client side WebSockets. We don't want that. Sending binary data, we don't want that. Simple server. This looks like a decent one. We want a simple server, not a client. यहाँ पे we are making clients. We are trying to connect to a WebSocket server. Const WS equal to new WebSocket, the URL of the WebSocket server. हमें अपना खुद का बनाना है. This we will use later when we want to connect to it. Right now, I want to create my own WebSocket server. Very nice boilerplate code has been given, basic code or your starter code. What is it saying? Import WebSocket server from WS. Import this specific, just like you do import Express from Express. Import WebSocket server from WS. Why is this inside braces? Because this exports multiple things. Express does not, this does. तो यहाँ पे अगर आपको ये import करना है, तो you just import the WebSocket server. इसमें WebSocket client होगा, 10 different things it can export. We just need the WebSocket server. Const WSS equal to new WebSocket server and give it a port कि इस port पे हमारा WebSocket server चलेगा. And then comes the complicated code. इस पे आते हैं हमें, कोई बात नहीं. Let's initialize these two. Import WebSocket server from WS. Const WSS, or you can name it whatever you want. Just like we write const app equal to Express, we are writing const WSS equal to new WebSocket server. Now comes this code which is slightly hard to look at. इसमें let's not worry too much about it. सिर्फ शुरू का कोड लिखने की कोशिश करते हैं. WSS.on connection. Whenever there is a connection, तब call this function please with a socket. ये पार्ट थोड़ा कॉम्प्लिकेटेड होगा बस. Everything else is simple in WebSockets. This might be a little hard to digest. What is this? This is what is called a event handler. कि यार WebSocket सर्वर पे जब भी कोई नया कनेक्शन आया, यहां पे भेज देना प्लीज. How did we do? app.get in Express /users. Did we do this in Express? What were we saying? कि जब भी यूजर्स पे रिक्वेस्ट आई, इसको कॉल कर देना प्लीज. यहां पे रिक्वेस्ट विल बी स्टोर्ड हियर, द रिस्पॉन्स विल बी स्टोर्ड, और you can play with this object to send back data, rest.json. That's how we have done HTTP servers. WebSocket servers are similar. अब WebSocket servers don't have methods कि .get होगा कि .post होगा. They don't have routes. They simply have connection. कि connection कर लो भाई पहले. Message जो भेजना हो भेज देना. So WSS.on connection. Whenever a connection is made, give me the socket of that person. Socket मतलब क्या है? A connection to that person. A place through which I can send messages, receive messages from that person. So ये socket जो है, this is similar to request and response that we had. अब इधर request response तो है नहीं, एक ही चीज है जहां पे you can send messages, you can receive messages. So that is what this socket is. कि for that user, this will be called multiple times. इस function में control बार बार आएगा. इसमें भी तो control बार बार आता है. If multiple people send requests, again and again this function is called, right? The handler function is called 10 times if 10 requests came. And similarly, if 10 people connect to your WebSocket server, control will reach here 10 times. यहां पे you can do whatever you want with that person's socket. कि यार इस बंदे का जो socket है, सबसे पहले तो send him higher. The server is pushing an event to you. कि बंदे ने कनेक्ट कर लिया, send them hello. So that they know कि या जो भी मतलब I want to just send them hello. That's just step 1. इतने पे इतना कोड समझ आ रहा है? Create a WebSocket server. Whenever there is a connection, call this handler. और इस handler में what are we doing? Let's log something. User connected. What have I logged? User connected. And right below it I've written socket.send hello. Server will respond back with hello to the client. ये हमारा server है. Client code we have to write. We haven't written that yet. We can use Postman. We can use the browser. We can use a mobile app. Everything can connect to a WebSocket server. Key thing is we have created a WebSocket server. अब इसको इस पर request कैसे भेजनी है a different question. To recap, import the WebSocket server, create a WebSocket server, create a handler. Okay, whenever there is a connection, control reaches here. Let's try to run it. npm run dev. I can run nd because I have an alias. You need to run npm run dev. Notice it's hung because it is listening on this port. कि कोई भी जो नया connection आएगा, I will respond back to it. So let's try to create a connection now. क्या बन गया है? What has been done? A server has been made. A WebSocket server has been made. What is left? We need to make a client talk to the server, which can be a browser, which can be a Postman, which can be a mobile app, so on and so forth. So I'm going to go with Postman. सबसे easy वही है. Server is running. Server is running. Open Postman. And Postman has a section. If you click on new, it has a section for WebSockets also. Notice there is a different one for Socket.io. They support Socket.io. Not everyone does, but they do. So we are going to use WebSockets. We have created a WebSocket server. This is what the UI looks like for it. Ignore this. Can I not close this? It's fine. Here you have to give the URL. Where is your WebSocket server running? And very importantly, remember the protocol is WS. It isn't HTTP anymore. WS://localhost:. Where is our code running? 8080. यहां से मैं कनेक्ट करना चाहता हूं. No need for a method, no need for headers, no need for body. Connect. Connect भी हो गया. And notice I received a hello message from the server. The server responded back with a message. So as soon as I clicked on connected, control reached here. Hopefully user connected got logged. User connected got logged. And the server responded back with a hello. यहां पे hello आ गया. Let's make it fancier. Set interval. Every 5 seconds, send them hello. Or let's say current price of Solana is some random number. Something like this. Every 5 seconds, the server will keep sending you messages. Or every 500 milliseconds, lot of messages the server will send. Let's see, does that change anything? I restart the server. I have changed. I've put this inside an interval. Every 500 milliseconds, I will do a socket.send. So now if I go to Postman, connect, notice messages are coming one after the other, after the other, after the other. Same was happening on the exchange website, right? A bunch of messages were coming again and again. Same thing is happening here. Now I'm connecting to it via Postman. I'm not connecting to it via browser, but it's very easy to connect to it via browser as well. We'll see it very soon. ठीक है. एक last thing, then we'll do a poll. We have seen how the server can send you messages. We have seen how the server can send you messages. You are receiving a bunch of messages. How can the client send messages to the server? Compose message. There is a section over here. Hi, what is the price of Solana? Send. I can send messages. वो गया भी. What is the price of Solana? But I don't have a handler over here. I need to add a message handler here. कि यार जब इस सॉकेट से मैसेज आए, सॉकेट डॉट ऑन, नॉट WSS डॉट ऑन, सर्वर लेवल पे नहीं, सॉकेट लेवल पे, क्या when this socket sends me some message, then event, or let's call it E, then control should reach here. Let's log E. Let's see what E is. You don't get the message here. I think you get event or something like that, websocket.data, or might just be the event, I don't know. socket.on message, जो भी मैसेज क्लाइंट भेज रहा है उसको यहां रेंडर कर दो, लॉग कर दो बेसिकली. लेट्स सी डज दैट वर्क. Restarted the server. Whenever the server starts here. Whenever there is a new connection, control reaches here, we log user connected, we start sending them messages. Whenever they send us messages, अगर वो हमें मैसेज भेज रहे हैं, we log them over here. Let's see, is this logging happening? अभी कुछ log हुआ? Nothing is logged. Let me try to connect to it. User connected is logged. I am receiving messages from the server. If I send a message from the client to the server, send. Notice something got logged. Now it's very weird what got logged. Buffer, पता नहीं क्या है ये. But something got logged. I think if I call a toString on it, तो मुझे उसका stringified version मिल जाएगा. Let's see. Connect. Send. What is the price of Solana? जो मैं यहां से भेज रहा हूं, hi there. Send now comes to the server as well. So do we understand how the client can talk to the server? How the server can talk to the client? Client can send messages to the server. Server can respond back with messages to the client. What is a good example of messages जो client server को भेजेगा या server client को भेजेगा? Let's look at a practical one. If I go to backpack.exchange again, let me open a market, let's say Solana. So if you look at the WebSocket connection, let's see अब यहां से क्या messages are going out, what messages are coming in. If I refresh and search for WebSocket messages, notice शुरू में I send a message to the server. I tell the server कि hey, I want to subscribe to the depth of Sol USDC market, Solana market. I want to subscribe to the trades of Sol USDC market. मुझे इस market का data दो. And that market's data is coming to me now. Coming. But as soon as I go to the landing page, the data stops to come. Why? Because I could have sworn there is a unsubscribe. Oh, there you go. Method, मैंने भी मैसेज भेजा सर्वर को कि मैं लैंडिंग पेज पे आ गया हूं. Now don't send me. The connection is persistent even across pages. I went from that page to this page. I still have the same WebSocket connection. But I'm not receiving messages from it. Why? Because I told the server, अब मत भेज भाई मैसेज. I am unsubscribing to Solana market. मैंने खोल नहीं रखी. If I have not opened the Solana market, I don't need any messages from the Solana market. Let me open a different market. Ethereum. Notice the first message I sent. Subscribe to depth of Ethereum. Subscribe to trades of Ethereum. And the server started to send me messages. If I go back to the landing page, I will tell unsubscribe to Ethereum. Unsubscribe to the trade of Ethereum. अब मैसेज आने बंद हो गए. So this is one example of how client sends message to the server responds back with some messages. Now let's do a poll. Do we understand this code? How's Solana doing? Pretty good. Do we understand this code on the screen? %86%. Quite a dip from 92%. It's 9 p.m. anyways, so small break, 5-6 minutes. I will look at Q&A and then we go from there. 5-6 minutes of a break. Recap the steps quickly. Lag is probably PubSub model lag, a few lags I see. Can anyone share the slides? WebRTC versus WebSockets. The polling concept, it went over my head. Okay, let me write down the questions. All good questions. All actually pretty actionable questions. WebRTC versus WebSockets. Polling concept. What else? Is there any difference between the type of WebSocket server and socket? Types of WebSocket server and sockets. Is this similar to PubSub model? Is this similar to PubSubs in Kafka? What else? Someone has a very big error, handshake error. Second brain app videos will upload by today. Like this is one video, it's 3.5 hours, has the whole thing. And quality of video should improve very soon. Cool. Java library to support Socket.io. Just Google it. Java Socket.io client and you'll find something. Okay, these are the questions. I'll answer them really quickly. There you go. Socket.io client Java. This probably, fully featured Socket.io client for Java. To use this.
One more nice question. Like, do BD sales or the Amazon sales, they use this WebSocket in case of sales?
Who? Amazon and?
Big Billion Flipkart.
On BBD use WebSockets. Why? Like
it is a question. Like
it's a question. I'm thinking. It's a pretty open-ended question. We'll talk about it. Let's start from the top. WebRTC versus WebSockets. This question is better answered when we reach WebRTC. But long story short, when you're in an application like this, let me show you. Gather.town, or a better one is this. FrameVR.io. This is like a 3D metaverse. Gather.town is 2D metaverse. This is a 3D metaverse. Let me quickly show you what it looks like. These heavily use WebSockets also, heavily use WebRTC also. So it's like this. I am an avatar over here. If one of you joins this space, can one of you join this space? I don't know if it's open, but can one of you try coming in here? Only a few of you, not everyone. I worked here for a year back in 2020. They've changed the product a lot. Maybe you guys can't join or something. I need to open the space. Frame settings, general, user capacity, allow spectator mode, mics on by default, permissions and roles. Oh boy. Interacting, anyone, viewing, anyone. Okay, there we go. Can you guys try joining now? This will have some, okay, that's loud. This will have some, oh, there you go. So many people joined. Wow. So this is everyone. As you guys move, can one of you try moving? Either their servers are down or you guys are not moving. Oh, there you go. Can you see people moving? Notice शुरू में सारे एक साथ थे. Eventually everyone spread out. Why did that happen? Because that data you don't care about. अरे अगर थोड़ी देर रह गया कोई बात नहीं, धीरे-धीरे वहां, after 5 seconds he will come there. He will eventually come to me. The data that you don't care about, that is stored, usually sent via UDP. कि मिस भी हो गया तो कोई बात नहीं. That is sent via WebRTC also. So as you guys are moving, your movements are sent via WebRTC. Your audio is sent via WebRTC. Because even if an event gets missed, क्या होगा? तुम यहाँ अटके रह जाओगे. After some time, that event will come, or you will eventually move again, and then wherever you move, I see you. That's not an important enough concept. And also, that is coming at extremely high frequency. Everyone is moving at 30 FPS. Everyone is talking at a really good, very high speed. So, for that reason, you should send it via UDP, via WebRTC. WebSockets, messages, ये नहीं मिस होने चाहिए. If someone is sending a message, it should reach everyone. So these messages are coming via WebSockets. Movement of the user and the audio of the user, for people who are unmuted here, that audio is coming via WebRTC. So that's the difference when you use one over the other. अगर एक event है जो बहुत ज़्यादा आ रहा है and you don't care too much about it, then you use WebSockets, else you use WebRTC. Then you use WebRTC, else you use WebSockets. What was the second question? Polling concept. मैं recap कर देता हूँ जल्दी से. If this is the front end and this is the back end, if I restrict you कि यार आप WebSockets नहीं यूज कर सकते, you cannot use WebSockets, in that case क्या करोगे? आपको तो डेटा चाहिए ना. You need a lot of data quickly for, let's say, the application that we just saw, the metaverse. Everyone was moving around, right? So you want everyone's position. अगर WebSockets नहीं है, if the server can't push you events every second, you can ask for events every second. You can poll the server. Poll का मतलब क्या है कि भाई दे दे, नहीं मिला दे दे, please give it to me, please give it to me. Keep asking it again and again. Oh God, you guys can ask the backend server again and again, and that is what polling is called. Okay, give me the movement, the position of everyone. It will give me the position of everyone. I'll move everyone on the front end. Then I'll again ask. That is what polling is. Keep polling. कुछ मिला, like that. And long polling is slightly different. But long polling is कि यार जब भी movement change हो तब respond कर दियो. I am sending you a request. This request is open. Whenever someone moves, then respond back. So it's called long polling because you are sending a request and waiting. कि अब जब I event तब भेज दियो. That is what long polling is. I don't know what this question is. Types of WSS and socket. You mean types? इसका type क्या है? This is of type WebSocket, which most probably comes from this library, जो इसका WebSocket export है. That is the type of this thing. And WSS has the type of WebSocket server. That's WebSocket.server. They have different types. Is this similar to pub? Yes, sorry, go ahead.
It is lagging too much.
It is lagging too much. Which Wi-Fi are we on? Raven. That's that one. All right. Time to move a bit. Oh, look at me muting myself and not turning off the video. Okay, that's as close as I can get to the room. The room is open. Not that that changes anything in Wi-Fi connections. Is that better? Hello, hello. Hello, hello. That's how Sargam says hi. Better?
Doing the poll.
Oh, you're doing a poll. All right. Is this? Oh, what's the question though? Is it lagging? The answer is yes. Is it better? I don't know. We'll have to do another one. Let me ask the question first.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Is it still lagging? Yes or no? Sorry, guys. I know polls are irritating. Is it still lagging on your side? Yes or no? Okay, that's a pretty big number that says yes. But then how did you know the question that I asked? Okay, let me try to move a little bit closer. But that's, I mean, worst case, you'll have to drop off and, recording, I'm recording it locally, so it's pretty prime. That's as close as I can get to the Wi-Fi. Am I connected to a VPN? Doesn't look like it. So I apologize for the people who are seeing a lag. Just go to the recording after this. Anyways, it's like 40 minutes of videos left. All right. I am proceeding. Akash, if the lag is really bad on your side, just let me know. Is this similar to PubSubs and Kafka? They are different protocols. They look very similar, but your browser can't really talk to a Kafka instance or to a RabbitMQ instance, to a PubSub. Browsers talk HTTP, browsers talk WebSockets, browsers talk WebRTC. They can't talk database. You can't connect to a database. You can't connect to Kafka from browser directly. That's fine. Amazon and BBD use WS. Why? Like for what use case? There's no real-time use case there. Like nothing changes. They have to scale up their existing infra. They have to scale up their existing HTTP servers, their databases, their caches. They don't have to introduce a whole new protocol because more people came. Unless a use case comes where there's a lot of real-time communication, there is no need for WebSocket servers on big billion day on Amazon. All right, cool. That's decent. 9/11. Let's finish a little bit of this. Talk a bit about scaling WebSocket servers. Then I'll do more doubts. Okay. Let's kick things off. Client side code. ये तो बहुत simple है भाई. We have already written the server. We have interacted with it using the client. Can we create a quick chat application? So before that, let's create a ping pong application, or what's called an echo application. There's a kid behind me that's screaming a lot. Echo application or ping pong application. That's the easiest example in WebSockets. Okay, here is a browser. Here is a server. You create a persistent connection, and you echo means echo. मतलब मैं चिल्लाया, मेरे को आवाज वापस आई. I screamed, it came back to me. So whatever message I send to the server needs to respond back with the same. That's an echo example we'll build. Ping pong is very similar. Okay, I will send to the server a ping. The server, whenever it receives it, it needs to respond back with a pong. This is when there is only one browser and one server. This gets complicated when you have two browsers and you build a chat application, for example. Now when I send a hi, it doesn't necessarily need to come back to me. मुझे तो पता ही है UI पे. It needs to go to the other party. So that will be step 2. Step 1 will be a quick echo application or ping pong application. Can you try to create it? Server पे क्या change होगा? If this is our server, what changes here? कि whenever there is a message, if e dot toString equal to ping, then socket dot emit pong. ये तो चाहिए. Oh, console dot log. If the message that came is ping, I will respond back with a pong. Let's see, does that work? Let's start it. Let's go to Postman. This is the code that I've written. Let me connect. Let me send a message that says ping. So I've written ping. I send it. The server responds back with nothing. How do you debug? Console.log e.toString console.log e.toString equal to ping. Let's see why this not worked. Why this did not work. Connect. Send a ping. It said user connected. It said ping. It said true. So I should have received a pong. Let me send a few more. And now I'll probably receive it. I still haven't received it. Oh, it's socket.send. That's my bad. It's not socket.emit. It's socket.send. Let's try it one more time. Connect. Send. Ping. Pong came back. I sent a ping. A pong came back. Now we have to build its UI. The backend hopefully is straightforward. जब भी message आया, if the message is ping, respond back with a pong. Building the front end is also fairly straightforward. Let's initialize the front end now. So I'm going to create npm create wheat at the rate of latest. That will create a React application. Let me call it week 17 WS front end. Let me select React as the framework. And let me select TypeScript as the language. Open this in Visual Studio Code. File. Add folder to workspace. Now I have the backend open here, the front end open here. Hopefully this is simple. This is how you initialize a React project. We have done it many times. अब हमें इसमें करना क्या है? app.tsx में is the question. Let me clear app.tsx. Make it completely empty. We want to create a chat application by the end of today. Right now we have to create an echo application. कि मैं ping भेज रहा हूँ, pong आ रहा है. Let's try to create it like a chat application. Let's create a div over here, /div over here. Let's write hi there. something like this. Let me move this. Empty React project. It's giving me a bunch of red squigglies over here. The reason for that is I need to open a new terminal, select front end over here, week 17 WS front end, and do an npm install. That will install all the dependencies. Once that happens, these red squigglies should go away. npm install is very slow. You guys are right. The internet is slow. All right. npm run dev. It starts my front end. If I go here, I see hi there at the center of the screen. Seems like we're moving in the right direction. How do chat applications work? You have an input box, type equal to text. And yahan pe, placeholder equal to message. Something like this. So you have an input box like this. User types something here, presses enter, or let's just put a button over here to make our lives a little simpler. Button. On click equal to send message, something like this. We are slowly building up to a chat application. Button on click equal to send message. Let me define this function over here. देखते हैं यहाँ पे क्या करना है. Don't worry about it too much right now. And button should say send, something like this. Hopefully this is very simple to digest. React application. Defined a function over here that does nothing. Defined an input box. Defined a button. It looks something like this. Hi there and send. Now comes the slightly challenging bit. Okay, when you click on send, how do you get hi there? How do you send it to the WebSocket server? Maybe even before that, how do you connect to a WebSocket server? That's what the slightly difficult bit is. Let's try to see. Connecting to a WebSocket server is actually fairly simple. We'll eventually go through a more elegant use socket hook that we will create. Right now, let's just do it, in a very dumb fashion. What do we want? Okay, whenever this app component mounts, whenever this app component gets rendered, tab I want to create a persistent WebSocket connection. I don't want to create it on every render. I want to create it जब ये component mount होगा, जब ये पहली बार screen पे आएगा, तब I want to connect to the WebSocket server. What do you use for this? Use effects, right? Use effect is a hook that you use. And इसमें if you give it an empty dependency array, that means this code will run only when the component mounts. तो यहाँ पे I need to define my WebSocket server or my WebSocket client more technically. जो code हम Postman में or whatever connection we are doing in Postman by clicking this button needs to happen inside this use effect. Harkirat, why can't you do it here? Because whatever code you write here, वो हर render पे call होगा. That code will get called on every render. But if you put it inside a use effect with an empty dependency array, then this code will only run once when the component renders. So hopefully this is clear. We have done this a few times. We understand what use effect does. Create the connection. Const. How are we sending HTTP requests? Fetch and the URL. Something like this. How do you create a WebSocket connection? Const ws equal to new WebSocket and give it the URL to the WebSocket server. ws:// localhost :8080. Something like this. That is all you have to do. This will initiate a WebSocket connection to the server. Now this gives you a bunch of callbacks, a bunch of event handlers. कि यार ws.on error कि अगर या on close or on error, if there is an error connecting to the server, then call this function. If the connection closed, then call this function. If the connection opened, then call this function, so on and so forth. It lets you attach a few event handlers. Which event handler is most important to us right now? On message. ws.on message. यार जब भी message आया, then again there's an event over here. Sorry, equal to event. जब भी there is a message from the server, do something over here, like render the messages on the screen. We'll see how to do that. But for now, let me just alert event dot message or event dot data, event dot data. That is how you start receiving events on the client. It's not as easy as Postman. You can't open a GUI, connect, and hope to see messages over here. You have to create your own event handler. यार जब भी message आएगा, I will alert from here, something along the same lines. That is how you receive a message. How do you send a message? For that, we need a variable over here. ये जो WS variable है, I need access to it here. Sending it is as simple as this. ws.send ping, let's say, or whatever the message is written. Let's just hard code it to ping. Question is, ये WS यहाँ कैसे आएगा? तो can you just create a state variable? Const ws, set ws equal to use, or let's keep it simple. Socket, set socket equal to use state. Initially, it will be undefined only. But right after I define the ws variable, I can roll it up to the state. I can store it in this socket variable that I can then use in every future request. TypeScript will complain over here. TypeScript is telling you socket is possibly undefined. So, you should add checks like if not socket, then return. Then TypeScript becomes a little happy. But now TypeScript tells you socket.send does not exist on type never. ये तो पता नहीं क्या बोल रहा है. Here, let me introduce something called generics in TypeScript and how you use them in useState. Basically, what is happening? Why TypeScript is complaining? How can I fix it? Harkirat, I can do this. You can do this. This will work. Let's do this for now. Eventually, I'll show you how to fix this also. Okay? Let's stay on track. Let's build our chat application. A function called send message, जहां पे socket.send हम ping करेंगे, server respond back करेगा, तो hopefully the control reaches here and we are able to alert. Let's see, does this work? If I send ping over here, I get back a pong from the server. If I send any message actually over here, the server will respond back with a pong. Why? क्योंकि कोड में I am doing socket.send ping. I am not doing socket.send यहां पे जो present है. I need to do that next. What am I doing? Socket.send ping. तो हर बार ही ping भेज रहा है. I am ignoring the value that is inside here. So let me change that. How can I read the value inside this input box over here? Can we use refs? Can I create const input ref equal to useRef? useRef, if you don't understand, then this will be a little complicated. We have covered it already. Const input ref equal to useRef, and यहाँ पे I can do input ref equal to ये input ref. Again, TypeScript is complaining. Again, there are ways to fix this using generics. We'll come to it. And यहाँ पे now I can say socket.send ping नहीं करूँगा मैं. I will write const message equal to input ref dot current dot value. Now, if you don't understand this statement, what is happening here, then you should go back to the classes on useRef in React. But what I'm trying to do is this input element I am trying to access over here, ताकि उसके अंदर जो value है I am able to get over here, so that I can send it to the backend. Rather than hard coding ping over here, I want to do socket.send message. Let's see, does it work? If I type something random, server does not respond. If I write ping, server does respond with a pong. So have we been able to create a simple ping pong client and server? The server looks like this. Very simple. Server में तो कुछ है ही नहीं. socket.on message, whenever a message comes, check if the message has body that says ping, then send it pong. Otherwise, don't send it anything. That is what the server does. The client, ये थोड़ा complicated हो गया. There are a few things here. There is a use effect here. There is a send message function here. There is a socket state variable. There is a input ref. But what is happening is कि I create a socket state variable क्योंकि ये initialize inside this effect होगा. I will initialize it inside the effect. I am using it over here. So I have to pass this WS variable somehow over here. So the rasta I chose for that was to create a state variable. Whenever the use effect runs, we connect to the WebSocket server. We set the global socket variable, this thing right here. And we say, जब भी message आए, ws.onMessage, alert the message for now. Eventually, when we create the chat application, we'll put it here on the UI. But अभी के लिए we say, alert the message. What do we write in the send message function? क्या अगर socket exist नहीं करता, तो return right there. Else, get the message body, whatever is written over here, get it over here in this message variable, and then do a socket.send message. Send that message to the server. Socket कहाँ से आया? यहाँ से आया. Dot send will send that message to the server. Server will respond back. Control will reach here. We will alert. Do we understand a basic ping pong example with client as well as server? Let me push this. ये नहीं समझ आया. No issues at all. 75%, that is very bad. So let's look at Q&A and see if we can answer some questions. If you understand everything, build a chat application, do your thing. Feel free to leave the class. Chat application डालो जल्दी से, between communication between two people, and then feel free to go as well. Why do we need to have set socket WS? Front end not understood. We can have a small feature in WebSocket on the website. So do we have to create WebSockets? We have created a small feature. Yes, then you have to create a WebSocket. Push the code. It is still not responding. It's just alerting on the client. Is it not server responding? It is still alerting on the client. Postman crashes after logging in. Okay. We can use state over input ref. Yes, we can use state over input ref. We can replace this with a ref. We can replace it with a state. Both of these things we can do. Replacing both of them with the ref is a slightly better idea. All right. Code is too complicated. Nahi samajh aa raha. Let me push the code so that you can read it on your side also. 100x devs cohort 3 repositories. WS week 17 WS ping pong. That is the name of the repository. It's a public repository. Let me push the front end and the back end, both things over here. So how do I do that? I'll just push the front end. I'm assuming that's the hard bit. There we go. The code has been pushed over here, so you can look at it on your side as well. Let's go through it again. A few people asked, why are you doing set socket over here? A few people asked, why are you using input refs? So there are a few complex things to solve here. It's not one. एक complex thing जो हमें solve करनी है, वो ये है कि how can I take whatever is written inside this and put it, let's say over here in this message variable. That is one complicated thing we have to do. The other complicated thing is how do I connect to the WebSocket server? Third one is कि यार WebSocket server से connect कर दिया. How do you use it over here? A bunch of things. So let me clean everything and start writing it from scratch. UI सबको समझ आया. Everyone understands the UI. कि हाँ, there is an input box, there is a button. There is an input box, there is a button. Now what are we doing? We are saying कि यार function send message जो है, this function will get called whenever the button is clicked. ठीक है. But before anything happens, before this button is even clickable, you need to connect to the WebSocket server. You need to create a connection between this browser and this Node.js process that is running on my machine. अगर ये HTTP सर्वर होता तो कैसे भेजते? If I would have asked you कि whenever this component mounts, send a request to the backend server, how would you have done it? You would have used a use effect. कि यार ये जो use effect होता है ना, it only runs on mount. Whenever app mounts, this use effect will run. तो यहां पे you would have written axios.post, something like this. What do we want? We don't want to send an HTTP request when this app component mounts. We want to create a socket connection. We want to create a WebSocket connection. So we write const ws equal to new WebSocket. We have to provide it the URL to the WebSocket server. कहां पे है आपका WebSocket server? Something like this. And we say कि यार WebSocket पे जब भी कोई मैसेज आए ना, whenever there is a message that comes on the WebSocket server, log that message over here. अभी के लिए चलो, don't even alert it, log the message over here. That comes in this e.data variable. That's what the use effect does. It creates a connection and whenever there is some data, responds over here. अगर हमें डेटा भेजना नहीं होता, if we weren't supposed to send data, this is all we had to do. Let me go to the backend and change it a little bit. Let me add the original logic कि set interval every 500 milliseconds client को भेज दो कुछ socket.send hello. Let's add this logic. Let's restart the backend. Backend. क्या कर दिया मैंने यहाँ? Oh, I created the front end inside the backend. All right, the backend started. Let me re-add the front end over here. Front end is here. Let me re-add the backend. Add folder to workspace. I have the front end over here, the backend over here. Let me go to the front end, start it. अब क्या कर दिया? Let me try starting the backend. I did something very dumb. I put the React project inside the backend and then now it's giving me problems. So what I can do is to speed up the process, I'm going to clone the repository that I just pushed to. And open that. File, add folder to workspace. And hope that this works. Plus ping pong npm install followed by npm dev. This works. All right. Now I'm going to this is now alerting every 5 seconds. Let me just bring the code that I just wrote a while back here. All right. The front end seems to be crashing. Sorry, I did a few things. I'll explain what. That's what happened. That makes sense. So as you can see, it's the whole front end got messed up because it got converted to JavaScript. But yeah, it's fixable. Let me revert the code to what I just showed you a while back, which was कि use effect के अंदर we have simply added this, and this is our code for receiving data from the backend. We don't have to send any data, सिर्फ data receive करना है, जो data receive हो रहा है उसको log कर देना है. Don't alert it, log it. Now if I refresh this page, you will notice send message is not defined. So let me define that function that we will use eventually. And refresh. Notice every 500 milliseconds I am receiving messages. There is something in React strict mode, if you remember, that makes something render pace, जिसकी वजह से दो करके आ रहे हैं. But don't worry about that just yet. I am receiving a bunch of messages from the server. तो receiving messages is very easy. उसमें तो कुछ complication नहीं है. Inside the use effect, whenever the server, the component mounts, create a WebSocket connection. Whenever there is a message coming from the server, log the message over here. That is how we've written the front end. अगर data नहीं भेजना है, now we want to send data also. So what we do, we created the send message function, and यहाँ पे I want to do a ws.send. ये जो connection बना है, this ws variable I need here, ताकि I can do ws.send hi or whatever ping. So how can I pull this variable out here? I can store it in the state, or I can store it in the ref. Both are fine. Ref is slightly better, but I'm just going to store it in the state. इससे क्या होगा कि whenever this use effect is called, set ws will set this variable, ताकि जब भी मैं बटन पे क्लिक कर रहा हूं, whenever I click on the send button, this function gets called. I do a ws.send. So that is how we have built the front end for both sending and receiving messages. तो अब अगर मैं backend को खोलूं, if I open the backend now and change it back to just have a ping pong functionality, okay, whenever the message comes, respond back. I remove this interval. So you will notice okay, when I now restart the application, the backend, I don't receive any message until if I send hi, it still responds back with a pong. If I send ping, it still responds back with a pong. If I send hello, still responds back with a pong. Why? Because मैं यहाँ पे ping ही भेज रहा हूँ. No matter what is written over here, I still send ping. This is hard coded. I don't read the value from the input box. I don't put it over here and send that. I always send ping to the WebSocket server, which is why it responds back with a pong. How can I replace this with the value over here? उसके लिए you use refs. But चलो, that is not related to WebSockets, so I'm not doing that right now. अभी इतना समझ आया? Did we understand this? Can we do a poll? It was at 75% before. I would assume it goes down because all the people who understood everything went away. Oh, it's okay. 90% is good. Cool. There are two things we have to do. We have to create a chat application, and then we have to talk about some scaling WebSocket architectures. Let's do scaling today, and let's do chat application tomorrow. I think there's enough code we have written. We need to restart the code with a fresh mind tomorrow. And chat application will be more complicated than this. Although I would assume 80-90% of you can now write it yourself. So try to write it yourself. While I take you guys through how you scale WebSocket server, why that is a more challenging problem compared to HTTP servers. So before that, what does scaling even mean? So we've moved to the last section. I'll just talk about it for like 5 to 10 minutes. Then we're good to go. अभी तक हम DevOps पे पहुंचे नहीं हैं. We haven't reached DevOps, but in the real world, you don't have a single HTTP server that is deployed. When you deploy it, you have multiple HTTP servers to load balance, right? अगर Swiggy की आप एक backend server थोड़ी चल रहा है जहाँ पे एक Express चल रहा है. Swiggy has multiple servers in India, and whenever you send a request to one of these random servers. Whenever you place an order, you might place it on another one. So this fleet of servers keep on increasing, decreasing as time goes by. रात को कम होते होंगे, दिन में ज़्यादा हो जाते होंगे. When there is Diwali season, then they have thousands of servers probably because a lot of people are ordering. So this infrastructure is scaled up and down. HTTP servers are stateless. Their state is stored here in a database. So, let's say there's a lot of load right now, there is Diwali season happening, they might have multiple HTTP servers. Let's say they have these 4 HTTP servers. You can send a request to any one of them. That is fine. As Diwali season goes away, they can start to just delete these servers, bring them down, shut down them, and your request will start to go here. All they have to do is shut down the servers when they have to downscale. All they have to do is start more servers when they upscale. And of course, start the process over there. The reason that happens is because HTTP servers are stateless. Agar database na hota, if there was no database, let's say they were storing users in an array over here, then you can't simply bring down a server. If the orders and users are being stored in an array and not somewhere else, if this server has a state, then there is a problem. Then, if you bring down this server, आपका user का data भी चला जाएगा. It will be very hard for you to share this user data between servers. This is one of the reasons that you need a database. A database is a common place where everything is stored. That makes the servers stateless. WebSockets can be stateless. You can use a database. Most of the times, they are not stateless. Most of the times, whenever you are chatting with someone, let's say there are 2 people, let's say you want to scale your application. You have an application as big as PUBG. So user 1 comes here and user 2 comes here. You have an application as big as PUBG. So क्या होगा? You will have to have multiple WebSocket servers. But WebSocket servers are what's called sticky or stateful. WebSocket servers में क्या होता है? If you and I are in the same chat room, अगर हम दोनों एक same chat room में हैं, then we should be connected to the same WebSocket server. Doesn't matter अगर हजारों WebSocket servers are there. You have a very big application, you scaled up your infra, that is fine. 2 people that are in the same room need to be on the same server. What code will you write here? You will write code like this, ना, कि ws.onMessage. जब भी कोई message आया, I need to send that message to the other user. ws2.send that message. जो भी message यहाँ आया event में, वो मैं forward कर दूंगा दूसरे user को. That is how a chat application will be built. मोटा मोटा अगर देखो, chat application code will look like this. कि यार whenever WebSocket 1 connection पे message आया, WebSocket 2 को ये message forward कर दो. That is how let's say the WebSocket server will look for a 2 people chat. Let's say it's Omegle. वहां पे हमने ऐसा कोड कुछ तो लिखा हुआ है. Now you can't be like यार जो 2 बंदे हैं, one person is connected to this server, other person is connected to this server. You can't, यहां पे जब मैसेज आया, इस बंदे को नहीं पता कि ये बंदा कौन है. This person can't find its socket address. This person can't forward a message here. This server has no idea who that other party is. So this server can't send the message over there. So for that reason, आपको उनको सेम सर्वर पे ही रखना पड़ेगा. एक क्वेश्चन पूछता हूं, ये जो WebSocket connection that we are making, whatever this on the server, if you look at it, we get a socket object, right? ये कोड हमने लिखा है. Can I store this socket object in a database? Yes or no? मान लो I create a database. यहां पे user1 आया. ये जो user1 socket है, can I put this in a database? And user2 यहां आया, मान लो socket 2. Can I put these in a database so that अब जब भी कोई मुझे मैसेज आएगा socket1.onMessage, I can just get socket 2 from the database and somehow send it the message. क्या मैं ये कर सकता हूं? Yes or no? Can we do this? Yes or no? Can we store WebSockets in the server? The sockets in the server, ये जो socket variable है, can this be put in a server? Yes or no? Beautiful. 50-50. मजे. That is why a lot of people get confused here. You can't do that. What's the best way to explain this? Okay. Let's say this was our HTTP server. A lot of people think this, so it's not just you, but it's the worst thing someone can say in an interview. Has happened to me. Gather town mein. Someone said this. Immediate reject. App.get. Whatever. Users. Whenever someone sends an HTTP request, हम यहाँ पे ऐसे करते थे. rest.json, whatever. Send some data to the backend. Can I store this res object in a database? अगर मैं चाहूं, क्या मैं इस res object को database में store कर लूं, so that मान लो कल को I want to respond back, तो I respond back with a different user, different server. इस server पे मैं इस res object को ले आऊं और यहां पे मैं कर दूं rest.json. Will this data go back to the original client? The answer is no. This res object this is a connection between this client and this server. This is this client knowing कि इसकी IP ये है. This is you knowing कि the IP of the end user is this. You can send them data over here. This connection exists purely between these two parties. आप इसको database में डाल भी दोगे तो you'll put some network addresses there. If let's say you are able to serialize this object, even though that will be very hard to begin with, पर मान लो आपने इसको एक string में convert कर भी लिया. You were able to convert this into a string. Database has no concept of WebSocket. Database is not written in JavaScript. You can't put a JavaScript object there. You can put JSON. You can put text. So let's say you're able to convert it to a string, put it over here. जब इस string को आप यहाँ लाओगे, and let's say you try to convert it back to a response object of Express, that connection is no longer between you and this guy. इस browser को थोड़ी पता है, या आपको थोड़ी पता है, या ये pipe जो है, that pipe doesn't exist between these two. The pipe cannot exist between these two. This pipe is meant for this client and this server. This REST object can only be used here. You can use it outside. You can send it to a function and use it here. That is fine. In the same process, you can pass it around in various functions. You can't send it to a database. You can't serialize it. You can't send it to another server and be like, भाई तू लौटा दियो यहाँ से data. This REST object represents an underlying network connection between these two parties. It cannot be forwarded here. That network connection doesn't exist between these two parties. That is why you cannot do it. All right. So coming back to the original question, you can't do this approach. You can't store the socket in a database. अगर दो लोगों को आपस में बात करनी है, if two people need to chat to each other, they need to be connected to the same server. This is what is called a sticky connection. कि यार अगर तुम room 1 में बात करना चाह रहे हो, if you are trying to chat inside room 1, you need to connect to server 1. And if you want to chat in room 2, let's say you connect to this one. Room 3 again here. Room 4 again here. So there might be some load balancing of rooms. कि room 1 के सारे बंदे यहाँ जाएंगे. Room 2 के सारे बंदे यहाँ जाएंगे. That is fine. But that doesn't mean different users on the same room can't connect to different servers. That is why scaling WebSockets are hard, because HTTP server कहीं भी request भेज देता है. Doesn't matter. Just scale up the number of servers, you are good. Scaling this up has all different set of challenges. कि अगर number of rooms बहुत ज़्यादा high हो गए, then you can bring up a new machine. But then you have to slowly drain some rooms and move them to the other machine. कि यार इस server has too much load, everyone move over here. Everyone from room 1 move over here. That is how you scale up. Scaling down is even more challenging. If you are scaling down, everyone is connected to this server. If you kill this server, everyone's connection dies. So you have to drain the servers. When you're scaling down, you first have to move people to some different server, and then you have to scale down. That is why scaling WebSockets are hard. If you have, 1 million people, you might need 5 HTTP servers. If you have 1 million people in a real-time game, all messaging each other, all having a WebSocket connection, you need a lot of servers. You need 100 servers at least. A single WebSocket server, at least in Node.js, on a single thread, can't really handle more than 10,000, 20,000 connections. So if you have a game that 1 million people are playing, you can't even use this architecture. अगर आप real time communication use कर रहे हो, and you have this sticky connection architecture, you can't have more than 10,000 people in your chat room. If you use Golang, if you use all 16 cores, then maybe a little bit more. But when you actually want to scale this to 1 million people in the same room, 1 million people are talking to each other in the same room, then you have to do something like this. Now here there is a new thing over here called PubSub. जिनको पता है, they can focus on it. Think of PubSub as just another server. The way you scale this is कि आपको WebSocket connections को आपस में भी बात करानी पड़ती है. The WebSocket servers need to talk to each other as well. If you have a million people in the same room, a million people cannot be supported by the same WebSocket server. So you create 3 WebSocket servers, let's say. Okay, 300 people here, 300,000 people here, 300,000 people here. Now, when I send a hi message, it will go here, it will go here. It can't go here. There is no connection between this guy and this guy. This server is not connected to this client. But this client also wants this message. ये जो hi message आया है, it needs to be broadcasted to everyone connected to WebSocket server 1 and everyone connected to WebSocket server 2 and everyone connected to WebSocket server 3. So, when you send a hi message, sure you need to broadcast it to everyone here, but you need to relay it to something else. कि भाई सारे servers को ये दे दियो. Hi message came, please send it to all the servers. So this will relay it to WebSocket server 2. This will relay it to WebSocket server 3, which will forward it to everyone. There is this tree-like structure that is created. This being the central point of attack, or the thing that needs to scale very well. This needs to scale to a lot of messages because यहाँ से messages आएंगे, यहाँ से messages आएंगे, यहाँ से messages आएंगे. But you sort of fanned out your network requests. अगर एक hi message आया, how many messages does this guy need to send out? 300,000. How many messages does this guy need to send out? 300,000. How many does this guy need to send out? 300,000. How many does this guy need to receive? 1. How many does this guy need to send out? 2. So everything is very well distributed. A single message came. The number of outgoing requests should be 1 million. But यहाँ से सिर्फ 300,000 जा रही हैं. यहाँ से बाकी 300,000 are going. 300,000 are going from here. And from here to here, one message is going. Here to here, one message is going. Here to here, one message is going. So you have distributed the number of outgoing requests across multiple servers. This is how you really scale an application that, let's say, needs to be 1 million people talking to each other. You only need this if they're all talking to each other. Agar first 10,000 people are present in room 1, second are present in room 2, then this is not it. All right. तो थोड़ा आइडिया आया. We'll code this. We'll code a scalable Gather Town. If you've seen my YouTube video on Gather Town, you now have enough context to build it actually. You can, it's a very complex project to build if you've only built, let's say a to-do application until now. First build the Brainly app. I'll post the video by today. Then try building chess maybe. Then try building the metaverse application. Most videos end here. मतलब इतना ही चाहिए होता है भाई. You need a WebSocket server. You need a Prisma backend. Now there is a Prisma ORM and Postgres backend database. Sorry. So there that is used. If you don't know that, then don't target it. But most applications can be इनको तुम्हें समेट सकते हो तुम. In an HTTP server, a database. You might need Redis as a cache from time to time. React or Next.js as the front end, and an ORM like Prisma, a database like Postgres, a WebSocket server for real-time communication. इसके आगे rarely do you go. Like rarely, there are a few other things like backends talk to each other, queues एक चीज होती है, PubSubs एक चीज होती है. We'll do all of this. But 90%, 95% of the applications can be built with, I would say 90% can be built with HTTP only. 95% can be built with HTTP plus WebSockets. और उसके आगे थोड़ा advanced backend communication के through some niche use cases are built, like algorithmic arena, for example. That requires something extra. Cool. All right. Quite a class. Practice. Tomorrow, let's do WebSockets coding, like a real thing, a chat application to begin with. If you're able to do a chat application, then maybe not scalable chat application. We can't do scalable chat application until we reach PubSubs. नहीं तो फिर वो कुछ नया concept ही हो जाएगा. So tomorrow, let's first try to build a simple chat application. If we are able to build it quick enough, then we can learn about PubSubs and do a scalable chat application. That seems simple. If you can build a scalable chat application, you can build a scalable Gather Town game, you can build a scalable chess game, so on and so forth. Okay? We'll end it here. Did you guys understand everything? How was the class? Are we good to go? Yes or no? Let's do a poll. And I'm opening chat. I'll answer questions in chat. I have a meeting at 10:05, so hard stop in 5-10 minutes. All right, 93% is beautiful. Then how does it work in BGMI? There are millions of players using and connect with each other. BGMI has a million people in the same room, like same जो भी होता है उसमें what do you call it, arena. 1 बिलियन लोग एक अरीना में तो नहीं होंगे, और अगर हैं तो आपकी प्रॉक्सिमिटी वालों से आप कनेक्ट होते होंगे. यू प्रॉब्ली कनेक्ट एवरीवन इन योर मैप और समथिंग और क्लोज बाय. वी कैन टॉक. आई विल हैव टू टॉक अबाउट दिस. देयर आर अदर चैलेंजेस देयर. BGMI में तो देयर आर game logic running on a server. Someone shot you. How do you figure out who's where this physics logic is running, this gun logic is running? वो तो अलग ही सेट का लेवल का चैलेंज है. You said it supports natively, so we are going with libraries WebSocket on the server side. You said it supports natively, so why are we using libraries WebSocket in the server? On the client, it supports it natively. On the server, does Node.js have a native WebSocket implementation? It does HTTP. You can do import HTTP from HTTP. Import. Does Node.js have native WebSocket? Like browser does. Node.js does not have a WebSocket solution. So that's why libraries have been written. Clients do. The client doesn't. Browser में होता है वो. All right. What is the best way for me to reach some of you? Like I am now. Yeah, I need to. Your portfolio looks good. There are a few things. Like in a few weeks, we'll roll out a form for cohort 3 also. We did for cohort 2 to reach people. Now we have HRs who are calling everyone in every cohort and getting the requirement, trying to connect them. But that's like a different rut of referrals. The other one is that I do. So I need to figure out the way to just get the best. Someone solve this. कि हाँ भाई पूरे cohort में ये है best बच्चा अभी. So I just know कि हाँ इसको रेफर करना है. So hard to find. So hard to keep context of कौन कहाँ है, कौन सी job है और कौन सा वो है. Someone find a way to solve this. This like, I'm sure a lot of people have this problem. Question 1. How can you build persistent and in-persistent connections together and basic CRUD के लिए WebSocket लगेगा नहीं? You don't need WebSockets for basic CRUD. I don't know what you mean by this, but basically इसमें क्या करना? आप HTTP request भी भेजो, send a fetch request, create a WebSocket connection. That is fine. A single browser can do both of them. So React application में आप HTTP भेजो, वो भी भेजो. You can have both persistent and non-persistent. If that was your question. If someone's girlfriend sends him a message while he's busy in a cohort live session, how does he receive the message when he come back online? Why did the message get deleted? That is a beautiful question. Wow, मैं क्या अगर हम दोस्त होते मैं क्या बढ़िया स्टेटमेंट इसको वो करता. Explain. Wow, beautiful. Question is कि हरकीरत you said ये रहा WebSocket server. And there is this banda over here and there is this girlfriend over here. Girlfriend, boy. Girlfriend is a little more thick compared to the boy. Girlfriend sends a hi message. But banda to abhi is busy in the class, very dedicated, phone is off. तो how does it reach him eventually? एकदम से तो नहीं आ सकता, उसका तो WebSocket connection ही नहीं है. After 2 hours he opens the application. Then how does it come in eventually? Great question. यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है भाई? Backpack.app पे जब मैं जाता हूँ, if I open any market, अब मैं थोड़ी बैठा था इतनी देर से उसको ट्रैक करता हुआ कि अगर मैं ट्रेड्स पे जाता हूँ मान लो, अब मैंने वेबसाइट थोड़ी खोल रखी है आधे घंटे से, ये ट्रेड्स कहाँ से आ रहे हैं? They come from an HTTP server. The new events while you are on a website come from WebSocket. The old ledger of events come from an HTTP server. तो जब आप WhatsApp खोलते हो, when you open WhatsApp, when he opens WhatsApp here, he will first send an HTTP request to a simple HTTP backend कि यार कौन से messages आए हैं since I last opened, and the server will tell कि hey these are the messages including your girlfriend's message, and simultaneously he will create a WebSocket connection कि अब जो आ रहे हैं वो मुझे देता रहा है. WebSockets are only for real time messages. पुराने messages के लिए you still talk to an HTTP server. जब भी his girlfriend sent a message to the WebSocket server, it eventually reached a database, right? ऐसा थोड़ी है कि सिर्फ, I mean, in WhatsApp they don't reach a database, like you store your own messages, but for a simple chat application like Slack, तो वहाँ पे वो database में भी जाते हैं. कैसे जाते हैं? There are architectures of it. They don't go directly, they go through some random archiving architecture. But the point is, when your girlfriend sends you a message, it goes to a database. If you are not alive right now or your phone is dead, that is fine. When you come back up, you ask the HTTP server, The HTTP server talks to the backend or database and understands कि अच्छा ये है messages and returns them to you here. तो वो set of messages पहले HTTP से आएंगे and new messages WebSocket से आएंगे. How are you going to deal with single connection like me sending you a message and no other can read that message? Why is that difficult? We'll do it tomorrow. Like, it's very simple. You just have to send it on one socket and not on every other socket. But we'll build a chat application tomorrow, so I'll show you. All right, that's that. More Notion docs. Then how does, okay, answer that. YouTube live chat uses API for polling for real-time chat. So why I heard people say that making API should be minimum, but YouTube makes a API every 10 milliseconds. That is totally possible. Okay, YouTube makes a API call every 10 milliseconds. 10 milliseconds? That sounds bad. I doubt they'd make a request every 10 minutes. Let's open a YouTube live. God, I only have 4 minutes. All right, this one.
मैं आप बोल रहे थे कि मोदी साहब का ब्रांड चल रहा है, तो महाराष्ट्र में ब्रांड क्यों नहीं चला, तो झारखंड में ब्रांड क्यों नहीं चला? तो मोदी साहब का कोई ब्रांड
I don't see. Oh, wow, that's a controversial stream. Let me mute it. Okay, I don't see that. What is happening? It's not every 10 milliseconds. It might happen every second. They might be using HTTP and not using WebSockets. There you go. They do use HTTP. चैट्स धीरे धीरे करके वो ला रहे हैं बिकॉज इनका स्केल इतना ज़्यादा है कि यू नो इफ दे स्टार्ट टू कनेक्ट एवरीवन विद वेबसॉकेट्स व्हाट दे आर ट्राइंग टू डू इज बैच मैसेजेस टुगेदर कि एक साथ मैसेजेस नहीं आएंगे 20-20 करके आएंगे हर 10 सेकंड में मांग लेना. व्हाट दे आर डूइंग इज दे आर अवॉइडिंग. तभी ये आप देखोगे एकदम से मैसेज नहीं आता यूट्यूब पे. इट कम्स इन बैचेस ऑफ 3 लेट्स से, बैचेस ऑफ 5 लेट्स से, ऐसे ऐसे करके. बिकॉज इन्होंने क्या किया, ठीक है, इट्स ईजियर टू स्केल HTTP एंड दिस इज नॉट टू मच ऑफ अ वो फॉर अस. यूजर साइड पे इतना बुरा नहीं लगेगा उससे अगर उसको चैट थोड़ा धीरे धीरे दिख रही है. इफ द चैट कम्स at a time after every 5 seconds. So, you know, just a feature that they've built because it's easier to scale HTTP compared to WebSockets. Okay, answered that. That was a good question. Queries in existing different WebSocket HTTP connection pool. HTTP connection pool. Let me Google that for you. Let me answer that. Does connection pool require platform 3-way handshaking? What is an HTTP connection pool? Does WebSocket have CORS issues? It does have CORS issues. You can enable it very similar to, you know, I think somewhere here you have to do, where is our server? Here. It does have CORS. I think somewhere here you have to do a CORS true or something like that. In case you will see issues, CORS issues, and you know, there's a very easy way to flip it on.
Sir, we are on time.
Oh, so okay. It's okay. I have 2 minutes. Let's do more questions tomorrow. I'll also read up on this thing, connection pooling, and answer your question better tomorrow. Let me look at if there's anything else. लेकिन भैया gRPC is HTTP. हाँ, तो you can stream in HTTP 3 and, you know, HTTP, but the newer versions of HTTP, they do allow you to send data, you know, via streams. Common question that comes in every cohort, but still isn't adopted as much as this. Guidance I'll probably have to skip. WebSockets are done. Why do WebSockets work? Don't know. It's yeah, great question. Because they do server-side rendering. So when that happens, one Next.js doesn't support API endpoints. It doesn't support WebSocket on the backend. So वो आपको अलग से लिखना पड़ेगा. And if you're trying to connect to it, most probably it will connect from the server. So you have to force the component to be client. We were talking about this yesterday. Okay, you have to, you know, force the component जहाँ पे WebSocket connection बन रहा है to be a client component, not even a client component, literally a client side rendered component. Client components are different, client side rendered components are completely different. And when you do that, तो ही हो पाएगा क्योंकि आपके सर्वर से आप WebSocket कनेक्शन बनाने की कोशिश करोगे तो वो फटेगा. तो इफ इट्स अ सर्वर कंपोनेंट इट डेफिनेटली फटेगा. क्लाइंट कंपोनेंट तभी फटेगा क्योंकि क्लाइंट कंपोनेंट्स आर आल्सो रेंडर्ड वंस ऑन द सर्वर. So it will try to create a WebSocket connection from your browser and as well as your server. That will create a problem. That's why, you know, it does do problems. Can you please explain Probo project? Yeah, you need a video for it. I don't think it's easy to understand Probo looking at the architecture. There is a video in Super 30, but, you know, give it a few months and then I'll probably post it. All right. Cool. I have to drop off, guys. Thank you.